In many ways, it is a puzzling emotion. We fall for someone, it feels good, we're happy. But our next guest has found that there is more to love than meets the eye. So joining us now to help us put love under the microscope is Sue Johnson, the author of Love Sense, the revolutionary new science of romantic relationships. She's also a professor of clinical psychology at the University of Ottawa. Hello, welcome to the program.
Hey.
Okay, I want to start with the subtitle because it is the revolutionary new science of romantic relationships.
Yeah.
What's the new science?
Well, basically, the new science is that it's not new on one level because about, say, 40 years ago, scientists started looking at bonds and bonding, and they started with mothers and infants. And actually, what we're not really aware of a lot of times is that their work has revolutionized the way we see kids and the way we parent our kids. We know that kids need love and connection like they need oxygen. But in the last 15 years, we've started to apply all the things they've learned to adult bonding, to romantic relationships. And that's really interesting because all through history, every poet and philosopher and almost anybody has really defined romantic love as a mystery. You know, some sort of strange, psychotic mixture of sex and sentiment, but that everyone's agreed that you absolutely can't understand it. It comes along, you fall into it, you fall out of it, sort of hits you in the head, right? And you can't understand it. So what is fascinating now is after only about 2 decades, we really can say that we understand so much about romantic love. It's not a strange mixture of sex and sentiment. It's really a wired-in, ancient survival code that's designed to keep a few people that you really trust and that you can depend on close. And that's a whole different way of thinking about it than sort of just a kind of sexual frenzy.
Okay, we're going to talk more about sort of how we're wired and how this is sort of bred in us. But
Yeah.
you say we sort of agreed on what love is. And, you know, society broadly hasn't agreed what the definition of love is. But are you saying the scientific community has come together and
Oh,
agrees
no,
on it?
science wouldn't. For years, science didn't even touch the whole topic of love. You know, I can remember even when I started in graduate school and I said that what I was interested in, it was explained to me very clearly that if I wanted to be any kind of scientist, I mean, I'm a therapist that gets couples into my lab and watches while they repair their relationship and helps them repair their relationship. But also I'm a scientist, and I was told very clearly that if you were a scientist, oh, you didn't want to talk about love. That was just weird stuff for poets and philosophers and sex manuals, right? So really, until about 15 years ago, it was a no-no for anyone who wanted to be taken seriously to stand up at an academic conference and talk about adult romantic love. People would sort of start to curl their lip, you know. It's like, sort of like, oh, you sit down,
mushy
right?
gushy.
Yeah, and even couples therapists at conferences would say, excuse me, what we do is we help couples not fight. We help couples be a bit nicer to each other or cooperate. No, what are you talking about? You can't get people to feel more deeply in love and create compassion and empathy and caring and trust and closeness. And no, we can't do that. So it was really interesting because over the last 25 years, my couples, from working with thousands of couples and teaching thousands of therapists, my couples have really taught me to understand love, to take it incredibly seriously, to honor it, to see how powerful it is. And it's taught me that we can make sense of it and we can even shape it. And I think that's revolutionary.
I want to ask about that because your book, and I don't mean this in a pejorative way, but it's sort of clinical. I mean, it's not mushy-gushy. It's not, you know, hug your partner more and you'll be more in love and go for these long romantic walks that we see portrayed in movies and in,
it's
you know,
not
greeting
little
cards
tips.
and stuff. But doesn't unpacking the nature of love sort of steal away some of the romanticism or the mystery?
Are you kidding me? No, I don't think so. After studying it for 25 years, I have more respect for the magic of love. When I watch a distressed couple who've been fighting for 20 years and the megawatt emotions and the pain and the longing, and I watch them in 20 sessions change their dance, change it from sort of recurring criticism and distancing into being able to reach for each other and have what we call a hold me tight conversation. When I watch them do that and I figure out how to help them do that, it's still magic. It's still magic. And it's more powerful than, well, if you'd asked me 30, it's more powerful than any romantic novel, because when we're loved, we grow and bloom. I watch couples help each other change and grow in my office. I watch them make their families more solid and secure. I watch them help each other with difficult emotions in things like PTSD and depression. There's nothing, if you can help people heal their relationships and understand them, you can create relationships that heal. So it's still magic, it's still magic. But that doesn't mean it's just sort of something we can never predict, or you can create magic, we just become magicians.
Okay. You know, we live in a society where we have phrases like friends with benefits and things like that. So I want to take the other side of that, which is monogamy, which kind of sounds boring in a sense, because there's, you know, friends with benefits is sort of sexy and isn't that interesting? And we sort of place monogamy in this sort of conventional, traditional thing. How natural, Sue Johnson, is monogamy?
From my point of view, it's obvious. You know, if we need these profound bonds, these attachment bonds, that really, if you look around you in society, it's obvious that we are animals with an incredible preference for investing in mating with one person and developing a relationship with this one person who we can trust, and that we want that to last. The longing is obvious. If you talk to young people, they did a survey of young adolescents, even in this society, right? Where people talk about monogamy is impossible and there's sex on every screen everywhere. You talk to young adolescents, they say their main aim in life is to find someone to love and have that love last. And it's very clear when you look at other animals. Mammals who invest time to rear very vulnerable young and have to really collaborate to rear very vulnerable young. Mammals, they prefer a mate, and they guard that mate, they groom that mate, they feed that mate, and they prefer to mate just with that mate. That doesn't mean there's no human behavior that's constant all the time. So of course, sex is just like everything else. Some people will go and have a one-night stand or mate with someone else. But it seems to me when you look around you in society that the longing and the preference for long-term love with some deep connection in it that answers our need for connection, is obvious and real.
And yet we have some cultures in the world, not Western cultures obviously, but some cultures in the world that embrace polygamy. Well,
if you really look at those cultures, most of the people in polygamous cultures only have one spouse, unless you happen to be the king or the richest man in the country. Okay, so it's very interesting. I think the issue is we want it all. We want to be able to think that we can have thousands of sexual partners, and we also want to have a deep emotional bond. I think you can have it all. I just don't think you can have it all at the same time, maybe. You know, it's not. And I also want to say that you're hitting the nail on the head. The issue with monogamy is that we've somehow associated it with sexual boredom. The evidence is very clear in good survey research. The people that have the best sex, the most thrilling sex, find sex thrilling, and have more sex are the people in long-term loving relationships. So there's all this stuff about how being with the same person means you've got to be bored out of your mind in bed is hooey. It's just hooey. If you really think about it, making love with somebody is an incredible act of communication and coordination. It actually takes some practice. We really know that the people who don't want to be close and who say they want lots of one-night stands, actually we know from research that they enjoy sex less. They have fewer orgasms and they have less sex. So this is a huge myth that monogamy is a delusion. I say, no, monogamy is not a delusion. If you know how to do it, it's delightful. It's just, this is all just a sort of big con job on how we have to be bored if we're with the same person. Not if you're paying attention and you have a deep emotional bond and you know how to tune into each other.
All right, let's get into the science of it, because love has these physiological reactions as
Yeah.
well. What's going on in our brains when we fall in love?
Well, we've known for years that there's certain things that goes on in our brains when we actually get attracted and infatuated with somebody, right? We get reward hormones like dopamine. We get flooded with oxytocin, which is a bonding hormone that naturally occurs during sex, right? But we get flooded with that. But I think what's more interesting is the more recent research that talks about how you don't have to make love to your partner to be flooded with this oxytocin bonding hormone. You just have to think of your partner, and your brain gives you a little hit of bonding hormone that turns off fear and gives you this feeling of calmness and contentment. Nature's amazing, right? But we also know things like we understand the pain that's involved in love more. We understand that rejection and abandonment is processed in the same place in the brain and in the same way as physical pain. So when people in my office say, "Don't say that to me, it hurts," I understand they're not talking in a metaphor. Closeness is a safety cue for your mammalian brain, and rejection and abandonment are danger cues. And we're understanding the power of this. Like, we just did a study where we took women who were repairing their relationship with their partner, and we put them in a brain scan machine. And we found that before they had these bonding conversations that we helped them have, they could lie in the machine and we'd tell them, when you see this X, you're going to be shocked on your feet. And whether they were alone in the machine or holding a stranger's hand or holding their husband's hand, when they saw the X, their brain went straight into alarm and they said the shock really hurt. After these bonding conversations, you put the women in the machine, their brain still freaks out when they're alone or when a stranger's holding their hand. But when their husband holds their hand and they feel securely bonded, their brain sees that big X and none of their alarm centers light up. The husband's hand is an amazing safety cue. And they say the shock was just uncomfortable. This is the power of love that can turn off fear and pain. This is why the research says we're stronger and more resilient and healthier when we're connected with somebody who we love.
Sometimes people say, as they're adults, that, I can't feel safe in a relationship because I was something during childhood. And so I want you to make the connection for us. What happens to us as children that makes us susceptible to love?
Oh, I think we all have certain sensitivities that we bring into relationships. But some people have been deeply wounded and terrified by the people they depend on the most. And of course, that leaves them amazingly wary. But the thing about this new science of love, it's incredibly hopeful, because what we've learned is that if you can help those people accept their fear, understand their fears make sense, and talk to their partner about it in a way that their partner understands, you get this incredible thing that happens where the partner can come and comfort them and support them and help them deal with that fear. And those people can learn to trust. We know how to help people forgive injuries. We know, and when we get great results, we get the best results in the world, okay? And 70 to 73% of the couples that we help in our lab and all around the world move their distressed relationship out of distress. They repair it, and a much larger number improve their relationship. But we know how to help people move into forgiveness, and we know what you understand you can shape. So we know how to help people talk about painful pasts and painful wounds and be able to say to their partner, I don't know how to trust you. I don't know how to let you in. This is too scary for me. And we help the partner respond to that. And the partner comforts them and holds them. And they learn that what we all need to know, which is that there is somebody who gives us safe haven, who can hold us, make us feel safe. And they learn that.
I want to stay with sort of how your childhood informs, the science of what you look into, which is adulthood, which is, we're into attachment parenting. Children are taught that they, there's your mom or your dad or your two moms, your two dads, but those are the people you can trust most in the world, and they form an attachment. How does that play into our adult lives and looking at love?
It's really interesting how it plays in. I mean, I think we've known for years that we're social animals and that we need social contact. But I think what this new science is saying is we don't just need social contact. We don't just need a tribe or a village. We need to know we really matter to a few people in that tribe and village who will come when we call, who we can really depend on, and who will literally hold us, protect us from the uncertainties of life. But what is interesting now, I think, is that all the evidence is that society is getting lonelier and lonelier. We are spending more and more times on our computers, at tasks, traveling, working. And, you know, people, when they do surveys, more and more people say they have no one to confide in. We turn to our romantic relationships for emotional support in a way that we've never done before in human history. People get married not to have kids so much and not to survive economically. They get married for emotional security. And I think that we really need that from our marriages now. So society's changing, marriage is changing, and it's more important than ever for us not to think of love as a mystery, to think of it as something that we can understand, scientifically study, and shape, you know. But I think we can do that. But the need for that is huge.
You talked about oxytocin, which is this chemical that our bodies...
It's a bonding hormone.
Right,
yes.
Which is now marketed and sold in a bottle.
Yeah.
Okay, we don't want to get into that. But I want to ask you, does oxytocin as a chemical that goes off in our body, does it promote monogamy?
Well, it promotes monogamy in that it fills you with this calm contentment when you think of this person that you're bonded with. Yes, oxytocin. And saying that, I mean, I think it's useful to think about the fact that our need for connection, our vulnerability and our need for connection, the fact that our children take so long to grow up, for example, we have to create a family to have that child survive. Our need for that has actually created our chemistry and our wiring in our brain. So, you know, yes, we're filled with bonding hormones, and that does promote monogamy. But it's a bit tricky because if you're into science, there's no one thing that's the sort of magic pill or answer. The fact of the matter is you can spray that stuff on the internet up your nose until you're purple. It only goes so far. You have a brain attached to your nose, and your brain says, I've just sprayed oxytocin up my nose, but in fact, I don't trust that guy over there because I don't like his face and I don't know him. You know, we like to take things like that and make them into incredible magical cures, and they're not. Somebody asked me actually in Switzerland if I wanted to do a study spraying, getting my couples to spray oxytocin up their nose in therapy. And I said, no, because we know how to help people have intimate conversations in a way that their brain naturally floods them with oxytocin. We don't need the spray. And also the spray's not going to work because people are going to say, I love you. And their partner's going to say, is that you or the oxytocin talking? You just sprayed that up your nose, right? I don't believe you. So it's you know. But it's fast. It is a revolution. If you had told me all those years ago when I decided I wanted to help couples and I was fascinated by how the fighting in couples and I didn't know how to help them, if you'd have told me I'd been doing brain scan studies and standing up on a stage with the people who found mirror neurons in the brain and helped us understand how we feel empathy for people, I would have laughed at you. I'd have said, oh, don't be silly. You know, I'm just a therapist. I just want to understand how to help people, you know, come together and not fight and destroy each other. You know, so it's grown amazingly. It is a real revolution.
So I'm going to get a little personal here. I'm in the time of my life, I have 3 young children, and
yes.
so our friends and I spend a lot of time talking about our relationships changing, morphing, not being what they once were as we raise and grow human beings.
Yes.
What effect do children have, beyond the obvious, what effect do children have on a couple's relationship?
Well, there's some debate about that, but if you look at the general research, right, having children is a huge transition to become 3 or 4 or 5, right? And it's a huge transition. And often it's a real pivotal moment for couples. It's a kind of make or break moment, and people have to adapt. And, you know, it's, for example, if one of the ways you bonded and stayed close was you had great sex, well, fatigue sleep deprivation interferes with sexual arousal, and that's the truth. Okay, so just there. So couples struggle with it, but the evidence is that almost with any crisis and transition, it's the same story. If you understand a bit about love and you know how to have what we call these hold me tight conversations, you can deal with almost any stressor or transition because you deal with it together. And you can support each other and you can communicate. And you can talk about the fact of, hey, I'm really disappointed because Saturday was the night when we always had hot sex and you're asleep. But you can talk about that and deal with it and decide to make love on Sunday morning. But if you can't talk, if you don't know how to bond and have those trusting conversations, it magnifies any problem you're having. And then people get caught in these dreadful patterns of blaming and distancing, and then they split up. It's a crisis point for marriage.
It seems to me, Sue, that a lot of these hold me tight conversations, a lot of what you're saying is about just making the time and space and openness to have an honest conversation with your partner to keep everything from the emotional to the physical to the physiological parts of love going well.
Yes. And
seems pretty simple.
Well, you just said something very profound, because you can go and look in magazines for all kinds of tips, like having dates to improve your marriage. But the bottom line is, you're absolutely right. And that's one of the reasons I wrote Love Sense, is because if we honor our need for connection, we know how powerful it is, we know how much we need it, then yes, we start to make it a priority. We give it time. How many people just go through their week without even turning and looking in their partner's eyes and saying, how are you doing? Who are you? How do you feel about me? How do you feel about you? What's happening with you? That gets lost in the rush of modern life. And then one day we wake up and we look at the person in bed with us and we say, this person's a stranger. Who are they anyway? Right? So you're right. What you honor and give time to and give priority to grows. And love is no different. We know now how to give attention to our children in a way that we didn't 50 years ago. I think now's the time for us to learn how to give that time and attention to our partner. If you create that safe bond, you're better at everything you do in life. You're stronger, you're more confident, you're more resilient, you're happier, you're healthier. I mean, it goes on and on. The research on love is, it's just associated with every good thing in life. But somehow we push it to the side and put our careers and our internet and our hobbies and our gym and almost everything comes before turning to your partner and saying, hi. Right?
Hi.
I've been married for 26 years.
All right,
so,
very good.
Yes.
Okay, we're going to end our conversation shortly, but before I let you go, make the broader connection, because we started our conversation by you saying, there's been so much advancement scientifically about the nature of love and how we can groom it and all those things. Make the connection between happy couples and a happier society.
Oh, that's easy. All the evidence is very clear. When you have this real strong connection, you are better at everything you do. You deal with parenting better. You're a better caregiver for your kids. You are a better lover with your partner. You have a better sex life, which helps you bond and stay together. You're more resilient to stress. You're healthier. You're less likely to get depressed. You're less likely to get PTSD if you're in a crisis. You're better at learning. You're better at going out into the world and exploring. If you're a young career woman, you're more confident and you reach your career goals faster. You're more open to other people. You're a better citizen. You collaborate with other people better. I mean, I could give you a list as long as your arm for the effect that this secure bonding has on people. In the end, it all boils down to they feel safer, they feel more connected with other people, they're better at collaborating with other people. If we want to create a really civilized, really humane society that develops the best of who we can be, we must understand the power of the human family and the power of what we call romantic love, to create this safety and to grow people. So I don't know if I did it. I could talk about that for a long time.
You gave me a good list there. It sounded pretty convincing.
Okay, right.
I appreciate your time. Thank you. It was lovely to talk to you. Thank you very much.
Lovely to talk to you too.
Support Ontario's public television. Donate at tvo.org.